Welcome to the node.js Technical Steering Committee meeting for September 21st, 2022. Before we get started, we'll follow the agenda as outlined in the issue in the TSC repo. Before we get started, does anybody have any announcements they'd like to share?
We should probably mention tomorrow we are planning to release some security releases for Node. The test CI has been locked down to start preparing for those. So I guess look out for those releases when they happen.
That's a good one. Down for details. Okay, any other announcements that people would like to share?
We have a new TSC member. Welcome, Jensen.
Right, welcome, Chen. Welcome, Chenzon. Great to have you here.
Hey, hi. Yeah.
Any other announcements? Okay, we might as well move on then to the issues tagged for the agenda. We have a fairly light agenda, but we just get through them, we'll end there. So the first one is number 44576, document update guidance for adding new modules. I don't know if Antoine, you want to cover that one?
Yeah, so it's on the agenda for visibility mostly because no one is objecting to it landing. I don't know. Do we want to give the full context? We discussed it on the previous TSC meeting. We want to document that new top level core modules would land with the prefix only now. So this PR is about that, and if there's no consensus within the TSC, we can discuss it further, but it seems that there is consensus so far.
Right. So I guess it's if there's anybody has any concerns or we should have some discussion, we blocked the PR, so at least the TSC, we wanted to make sure all the TSC members were aware and had an opportunity to object or comment. So I don't know, Antoine, is it like if we don't hear any objections today, we'll move forward, or what else do we think we need to do on that one?
Yeah, I think that sounds good to me. I think unless someone wants to object, so either now or in the PR, please do. Otherwise, let's move forward and land it.
So why don't we say, if anybody has any concerns, they can chime into the issue. If you don't want to share them privately, feel free to reach out to me or Antoine. Otherwise, we'll go ahead and land the PR tomorrow. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think the PR has been ready to land for several days. It's more that Jordan was hoping that someone would express remorse, but even still, if it were to go to a vote, there's like 11 approvals on that PR. That's half the TSC already. So
yeah, I don't hear anybody, like there hasn't been any objections, so we generally only vote when somebody is wants to object or has some objections, or we're discussing.
Do you want to promote Mateo?
Yep, that's what I'm doing right now.
Yeah, I think with regards to Mateo's point about like trying to make it available if it's also available in the NPM registry, like sure, but I think the odds of that happening, like we saw with test, it's like either that can be a goal and we're going to try to come up with names that aren't already claimed. Like test runner was like the best we could come up with for that, but then people didn't like that. Or it could be a non-goal and we come up with like whatever the best name we think it is, even if it conflicts, and then it just lands as prefixed only. And I think based on how test went, I think it's more likely that future modules will fall under the latter category. But also, like, these things happen so rarely that they can be, considered each one individually. Like we could document the process that we ended up following for node test and assume that that's like the default. And then, whenever this comes up again, if either the name happens to be available or there's a similar name for that new module that is available, we could just consider it as a one-off, I feel like. But, I feel like the documentation needs to assume something. So it should probably just assume the node test scenario, and we can handle the other one as if it comes up.
I am not like, I would prefer if things were available on NPM, but my preference is not that hard to actually cause a massive amount of overhead for everybody. So I am not willing to champion the looking for just supporting both. Okay, essentially, it seems the vast majority of I am supportive of people wanting to make clarity for the reason you mentioned, Geoffrey. So I'm just like not objecting and approving, essentially, because it seems the good thing to do. But I would actually prefer to have the module open. But if the module is available, it's always easy to open up PR and say, oh, look, this is available also as with the prefix, without the prefix. So, and then it goes to the
right. That's just the standard. Yeah, I think it's like making it clear it can land with just the prefix, so we don't have that discussion. Like, it seems like we get into that we have a long discussion every single time. So if we can make the default,
that's the reasoning why I am approving, essentially. So
okay.
I don't think
cool
we're
background, Rich.
Land a top level module without it being discussed at all at the TSC.
Well,
so
yeah,
I think there's, we don't have to worry necessarily about it. So. Okay,
so I guess I still hear most people are like, everybody's comfortable with what's there. So unless we hear some like somebody wants to, comment with concerns in the issue or reach out to, any one of us really with the private concerns, we'll plan to land it tomorrow based on the discussions. That sound great to everybody? Okay, tomorrow. I'm just putting that in the notes. Okay, so the next thing on the agenda was number 721, request to access Firebase. I'm guessing, I don't know, but Rich, did you add that one?
That's resolved.
That's resolved, okay.
Thank you, Geoffrey.
Okay, then let's just take a quick look at the strategic initiatives. I'm just finding those. So anything new, Antoine, on the core promise APIs?
No, the inspector promise is PR is still open and almost ready to land. Should be on time for G19.
Sorry, just which PR was that? I guess I missed the
inspector/promises module.
Good. Okay, I'm going to the next one. Chenzong, anything on the Shadow Realm initiative?
Yeah, I'm still working on this PR, and this PR is ready for review. I have posted the links in the chat that we are disentangling the base object with the node environment, so that the base object can be created on a program basis. So we still need reviews on this PR.
Okay. Okay, and then I know Michael mentioned that he's on a connection where he can't speak, but in terms of V8 currency, I know there were some issues, but it sounded like things are now moving better forward. And so V8 currency in terms of getting a new version of V8 for Node.js 19. In terms of the next 10 initiative, we were planning today for the Collab Summit. We actually did a mention to members to ask people to fill in a couple of easy retro brainstorms for technical priorities and what's working well, what's not working so well in the community, which we'll then use as input during the session in Dublin. So that's kind of was the focus of what we were working on today.
I think one of the sessions in Austin was ESM and loaders and observability. It might be good to repeat that topic in Dublin.
Right. If you want to submit a proposal,
I can't come to Dublin.
Right.
So I don't know, maybe
Something
somebody's
that I plan to, if what I plan to do, okay, is if there are a few people that are involved into that group, take them, and there is still a big question left open in your experiment, Geoffrey. So if I can get a session on, let's get an answer to that question to Geoffrey.
Oh, you mean the async hooks thing?
Yeah, exactly. There will be enough people in the room to brainstorm.
That would be nice.
For half an hour, for an hour, because I was looking at it and it was just like, oh, I will probably need to, this is a very long work, okay? And I really need to write down that session topic, okay?
Well,
which is, let's get Geoffrey an answer, but I want to, should not be that.
Would be nice.
It should be a little bit.
I mean, the bigger question would be like, is this, whatever you want to call it, the issue or maybe a bug that I found, like even a problem? Like maybe, I never quite got an answer from the New Relic guys about like, well, apparently they have support for instrumentation with ESMs. So like, is it that their support, it has a bug that they weren't aware of because of this async hooks thing? Or is it that this issue that I found is like maybe not a blocker for instrumentation support, in which case we could just like ignore it? I don't know.
I have a feeling that
they had promised me like some kind of write-up about what's the state of instrumentation in ESM based on what they found building ESM support for their library, and we're still waiting. So
I am kind of sure that for some use cases it's a problem. I'm not sure if it's a problem for APMs. So just to be clear, it's I have seen it, those areas of the code crash when using domains within a some test framework use domains to wrap errors, to capture errors, and domains are based on async hooks. So I started all the way down, essentially. Okay, and at the end of it, there are, I've seen some crashes on that related to that problem when using domains with ESM on that.
okay,
stuff.
I mean, it wouldn't be bad to solve the
Yeah,
issue,
I
even
can
if it's
take.
not a problem for
I-
instrumentation.
I
but-
can't open an issue anytime, any sooner. Okay, so maybe we can try to. If you can, it would be great if you could join remotely, Geoffrey, for that. If this is a time that would work for you, maybe on Saturday, could you make it, or it's very hard for you?
Probably, yeah.
If you can pick a time, I can pick a. Let me know a time that would work for you,
Well,
and then I try to slot it in.
let's talk offline, and I can.
Yeah. Okay.
Tell me, when the we can figure it out.
Yeah, let's figure it out, and we can, so that you can join remotely, essentially, so that you're in.
And
Okay.
I think based on the current schedule, there's like 2 rooms. One is basically scheduled, but the other room is pretty much empty most of the day. So
Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, it would be nice to. I mean, I can follow up with them and be like, hey, that write-up that you said you would do, could we have that before the next collaborator summit? Because then at least that kind of gives them a deadline. But it would be good. I don't know if there are any other instrumentation vendors maybe coming to this upcoming summit, because it wouldn't be bad to get a similar write-up from somebody else so that we have like more than just one perspective on like what the shortcomings are. But and then spinning off from that, we might need to figure out a way to like, okay, how do we kind of put the onus on these companies to like, hey, you want such and such, then you need to like contribute to add whatever feature to wherever it should go, diagnostics channel or who knows what, like.
I think like, if we can document the way we think it needs to be fixed, or like, yeah, we understand and here's the strategy. And then it's back to like, if there's somebody who's like, we need this to work for us, we can point them to that to say, yeah, we understand the problem. Here's the way we think it should be fixed. So if you actually submit a PR, we'll be receptive, right?
Yeah.
I think that can help to at least make it as crystal clear as we can in terms of, yes, if you do this, we'd like you, we'll accept it.
Yeah, there's a PR in progress right now that looks like it probably won't land, I guess, where someone from the Yarn team wants to expose even more CommonJS loader internals. And it's basically like, they're trying to implement essentially a virtual file system. And they're like, well, you exposed all these other things, but not these 2 little pieces. So, we're overriding all these other things. But we can't override this, so expose them so we can override those as well. And everyone's like, well, no, we don't want you to be overriding, big chunks of like the FS module and so on. You come up with a better solution. And there's a bit of like a standoff where it's like, they don't want to do the work of coming up with a big elaborate API for how do we want to allow customization of file system calls, which would essentially be something similar to like the loaders API. But we don't want to like just rubber stamp the monkey patch, like quick and dirty hacky solution. So it's like, this could be a kind of a test case for it. It's like, well, if you want that, okay, we'll do the work of giving you a rough outline, like you're saying, of like, a rough idea of what we would approve, but then, it's on you to like build it because you're the one who wants to like, build on top
It's
of it.
kind of like, yeah, I can see like, here's the strategy. Here's what the project has consensus in terms of the right way to go. That can help, hopefully, make it clear like this, yes. And if it's not in line with that strategy, then it's unlikely to land, right? Like, and so.
For what it's worth, the API that you're talking about has already landed in Node. So it's a test that's still blocked.
Which API are you talking about?
The module._stat and the module._read package one.
Well, they're part of Node already, but they're internal. Like, I think
Yeah.
that was like, they're internal. I think by accident or legacy, somehow we've like exposed publicly other private methods on module that then people have like built things on. But these, for whatever reason, were never exposed publicly, unlike the other ones, and so now they want to expose them. You know, and maybe we should, just for consistency, but it's also like, you know, we've been trying to push people away from this bad pattern for a long time. So it's sort of like, you know, is this maybe some, like, we have a point of leverage to now kind of force the issue or put our foot down and be like, no more doing it like this, blah, blah, blah. Because like the ESM loader was kind of built in a different way where it's like, you know, you can't monkey patch the ESM loader. So hence the need for the loaders API to like be able to do a lot of the things that people were monkey patching CommonJS to do. So it's more of a question of where do we want to drive people going forward.
Right, and I mean, I'm sure this has been discussed before, but like, it's like, would we want to drive it so that you basically use the ESM loader approach for both, you know, ESM and CommonJS loaded modules, right? Instead of monkey patching.
I mean, I think we want to get away from monkey patching, like, period. You know, it's never a good approach to like support, I think. So
Express. Sorry, I had to make this joke.
If we like somehow stop that monkey patching thing to work, it's probably going to break a lot of the ecosystem. So I'm not sure if that's the right way to go. Because if you consider things like Electron and PKG and almost all packages that try to do anything related to a single executable, like they all kind of rely on this whole thing.
but they shouldn't. You know, like they can't in an ESM. So at some point, it's like, you know, it's like kind of a legacy that we left behind when with CommonJS. It's like, yes, it's some, like if we actually took it out of CommonJS, then it would break a lot of things, or they would be forced to migrate. We can really push the issue hard by taking it out even before providing an alternative, and that would like put pressure on those groups like the Electron team to submit PRs to, you know, extend the loaders API or whatever similar APIs to restore functionality that we ripped away from them. Those are more like strategic questions, but you know, by simply not supporting it in ESM, that's the kind of like more soft approach of like, at some point, you're probably going to want to migrate, you know, Electron framework to ESM. Therefore, you're going to need to like find solutions for these things. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think like, you know, there's a whole gray thing, but like at one end is like trying to encourage for new stuff. Like, you know, in terms of those methods, is it possible to use the loaders to, you know, instead of monkey patching, right? If it is possible, then it seems like encouraging that makes sense versus adding in something new, right?
Well, because then it becomes like an actual supported API. You know, monkey patching node internals is like, that could break at any time, and you know what I mean? Like it makes it really hard for us to do any changes with the module loading system or whatever other people are monkey patching, because it's sort of like even things as specific as function signatures of internals become part of like a public API. You know, it becomes really messy, you know. They're not intended to be, it's not intended to be a public API. And so something like the loaders API or whatever we spin off from it, like if loaders was what remains specific to modules, and then customization APIs for like all these other things like customizing source maps and customizing the REPL and blah, 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 then that's like, okay, here's the API that we're creating for these purposes of you want to do these customizations. You know, here's a way to do it that doesn't involve monkey patching. You know, we will support this, etc. So.
Yeah, like this sounds like the kind of thing that we're working on currently in the single executable team. So instead of duplicating the work, maybe it makes sense to just join forces and collaborate together on
Sure.
this thing. Yeah.
Yeah, like in that virtual file system, like my first question would be, is it possible already with loaders to get to do what you need? If the answer is yes, then it seems like that's the way to go. If the answer is no, then the collaboration between the two teams to figure out like, well, what extension to loaders or whatever would be needed to do that seems like a
It's
good thing to
possible with
focus
loaders today when you're trying to load something through like import and maybe require. But not if the user code is like literally doing like fs.read file. You know what I mean? Because then it's like, okay, well then you have to monkey patch fs.read file if you want that to, you know, be actually making a network call or something like that. So it would be about creating a similar type of thing to the loaders API that allows like a file system hooks API that just like we have resolve and load for module loading, we would have something similar for, you know, the various stages of, you know, file system calls for the various ones.
So that does sound like, I don't know, Darshan or Jeffrey, who it makes sense to organize, but it sounds like a joint meeting or joint discussion between the two teams would probably make a lot of sense to make progress on that one.
Yeah, Darshan, if you want to look at the node.js/loaders repo, there are a few issues related to this. They're probably linked to from the README just on the front of that repo, or you can let me know if you can't find them. But there's talks about like if you search for like virtual file system and stuff like that, you'll find the discussions about it and like the use cases and so on have been explored in there.
Okay, I'll take a look.
Any other topics we should discuss? So that was the end of the agenda. I know one of the people asked we stick around for a private section.
I can just give a quick update. It's not, I guess it's not on the list of strategic initiatives, but the loaders work is getting pretty close to stable. There's only 2 items on the roadmap that is on that README I just talked about that remain to be done before we, you know, propose marking the API stable. There's an open PR for one of them. That's the like loaders effecting following loaders PR. And then there's the other one is moving loaders off thread, which has a draft PR open. It's not quite ready yet, but a lot of progress has been made. So I'm hopeful that within a week or 2 that should be ready and or landed. And then there'll just be the question of like how much, you know, baking time do we want to let go by before we consider the API stable. So hopefully this could all, you know, hopefully this can all land before 19.00 goes out, whether or not we mark it as stable, but at least it'll have, you know, what should be the final, you know, when becomes stable API would be in 19. But just letting everyone know that that's happening and we're getting close there.
Well, that's good news.
I mean, there's a lot of stuff that people want that is in like the phase 2 of like after it becomes stable, all this other stuff can get added without, you know, basically everything that could be added without causing a breaking change got pushed into phase 2 so that we could just like get to stable ASAP, and we're close. So
I think before getting stable, we want to see buy-in from a few APM vendors at least, so that we know it's okay for them. Okay, like that's.
Yeah, for this, some other major features, we put together a list of like, you know, and it's been like X test coverage, green, like, and it was some things like that, like real use cases. So it might be like, you know, 2 APMs saying, yeah, we're using it, it looks good or whatever. So maybe that's a good thing to think about, Jeffrey, in terms of like, what's the proposal of this, if we reach this, then, you know, it can go stable, right?
Yeah, I mean, all I can tell you is like what I heard from the New Relic guys, and which was that they considered their instrumentation of ESM experimental only because the loaders API was experimental, and that like when ours went stable, theirs would go stable. Now,
So
you know,
I am happy to.
which is kind of
so-
like a catch-22. But yeah, I could ask them that question
Yeah,
too,
if
of like,
exactly. Okay, just you know, that would be the. And to be honest, something that we should be doing anyway before 18 goes out, I think, is dropping the word experimental warning.
experimental wording on the loaders API.
Yeah.
Okay. You mean like
We have shipped-
before
we have it-
before it goes LTS, or like what do you
Yeah.
mean exactly?
No, it's the same. Doesn't matter. Okay, like we have people using this anyway out there right now, and it's kind of it has been. We have been asked a few times for a flag to disable showing that experimental warning, which means that it's dropping it might, you know, it's annoying for people. It's just annoying for people. People are using that feature for real code.
I mean,
Okay.
I don't know how this happened, but like the flag itself there's both -- experimental loader and -- loader. That's been the case like for years. I think it was
No,
I think
I
the
mean,
version was added by accident. But yeah, I know you're talking about the warning. I would be fine with that, of like maybe dropping the warning before we mark it as stable in the docs as like a separate step. I feel like we did that.
I
with
would
experimental
separate the
modules
two
years ago
steps.
too.
Yeah, we had plenty. We have done this for plenty of stuff during the, you know, it's still experimental in that sense, but we felt that bothering people up about it was not going creating
Well,
more
maybe that's what
problems
we could
than-
do for 1900. Like we'll get these two PRs in, we'll do a PR to drop the warning, and then give it some more baking time, and then update the docs.
That's and that will be my, because if you consider it, async hooks is still tagged as experimental, which is, you know, it's insane.
That's another discussion we need to have at some point.
It's
Let's
insane at that level.
We need to first get to the bottom of that issue I opened, I think, about async hooks.
Yeah, no, that's
but
a hard one,
after that,
but anyway,
we need to have that discussion about like what is the future of this API, because if it's basically been abandoned, which it seems like it has been, then
it's not abandoned, it's used everywhere. So
no, but it's abandoned by us. Like there's no one maintaining it. So
it's not true. It's
problematic.
Done. It's not true. It's done.
The discussion in the diagnostic group has been, let's, you know, not that it's going to be removed, but that we should try and provide APIs like the async local storage, which we're more comfortable making non-experimental. And so versus the, you know, accepting.
Well, I think it needs to get moved internal, not necessarily. It can't be removed because stable APIs depend on it, but it also doesn't need to be public. So I think that was the way forward that they come up with a few years ago. And it's still, I guess, the default thing. So it's sort of like, but what needs to happen to actually, you know, make it internal and take it away from the public sphere.
Anyway, who is using async hooks today is using an API that is more or less internal. Okay. If you make some mistake there, you can literally crash your node process very easily.
Anyway,
so
this is a longer discussion, and we should talk about like
we have
say we do want to make it internal.
Because I need
blah, blah, blah.
some info from all of you in the private section. So
and I think Jeffrey, you might want to go look in the diagnostic repo, because there are some issues discussing that topic, and there's like
that's where I got this from.
There's been people working through it to say, like, if we could come up with all the use cases, and then we had APIs which covered those use cases, then you might be able to move forward with actually making it non-exposed, right? But so anyway, you're right. Another discussion. Anything else before we close out for today and move to the private session?
Yeah, just before we close, so v19.0.0 is closed. So if TSC members want to go through the list of several major PR that are open, would be very welcome because there are a few of them that need some review. So it can land in time.
Thanks for the heads up. Anything else? Okay, I'm going to stop the stream if